All right, now we're going to go to question 3, and it involves factoring. The first thing you want to do in factoring is see if it has a negative in front of the a. And in this case, it does have a negative. So we need to factor out the -1. So let's go ahead and do that first, because that's the way you have to factor. You have to make sure it's a positive in the very, very beginning, the x squared. So we need to take out that -1, factor it out. So I'm going to have -1, and you have to be careful here. So -1 times what is going to give you a -6? Well, that's going to be positive 6x squared. Because a negative, if you use the distributive property, you should end up with a -6. So that's why we're changing the sign. Now a -1 times what is going to give you -11? Well, that's going to be positive 11x. Because -1 times a positive gives you a negative. Then we're going to do, for the 4, the same thing. -1 times what is going to give you -4? It's going to be positive 4. So to make things easier is whenever you factor out a negative, you just change the signs of each term. Do you see that? It went from -6 to +6, -11 to +11, -4 to +4. Now that you have the positive coefficient at the beginning, now you can factor. So we're going to ignore the negative for right now, and we're going to factor out this part, 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. We cannot forget the negative until the very end, and we add it to our answer. So first thing you check is, does it have a greatest common factor? Is there a number all 3 of them divide by? The answer is no. So then now we have to do that special type of factoring where we're going to multiply the 6 times the 4, 6 times 4, which is 24. And we get all the factors of 24. So that would be 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. And this symbol tells you that you are going to add them. So we're going to add the numbers. We have 25, 14, 11, and 10. And we're looking for the term that's in the middle. In this case, it's an 11. So we're going to be using the 3 and the 8. So then we're going to set it up. And whenever you have a number in front, remember you have to set it up as 6x, 6x, and then divided by 6. You can't forget that part. Because if you do FOIL, 6 times 6 is going to give you 36, but we have a 6 in the front. So 36 divided by 6 will give me that 6. And we're using the 3 and the 8 because that's what we found. Those are the multiples. So we're going to use 3 and 8. This tells you to add, and also that they're going to be the same sign. So if you add these, what do the signs have to be to get the positive 11? Well, since they have to be the same, then they are positive. Positive 3 plus positive 8 gives you positive 11. We're almost done. Now we need to factor out just the greatest common factor of each one. The greatest common factor in this one, what the number they both divide by, is 3. So I'm going to factor out the 3. And I'm going to be left with 2x, because 3 times 2 gives you 6. 2x plus 1. Don't forget that 1. Some kids forget to put the plus 1 and they think it's a 0, but it's not 0, it's a 1. Okay. So let's see. Let's just check our answer. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. Yep. Now we find the greatest common factor here, a number they both divide by. In this case, it's a 2. So we're going to factor out the 2. And 2 times what gives you 6? 3x. 2 times what gives you 8? Positive 4. Okay. Now, from here, we need to get rid of that 6 at the bottom, but in order to do so, you need to multiply 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, divided by 6, they end up canceling. And now you're left with 2x plus 1 and 3x plus 4. But remember at the very beginning we factored out that -1 right here? Well, we need to put it in front of our answer. Because if we were to do FOIL here, 2x times 3x would give me positive 6x squared. But we want that negative 6x squared from the very beginning of our answer. So we're going to put the negative in front. You could put a 1 there, or you could just put a negative. Either way, it's correct. But there's your answer. Let's go ahead and do another one. Another one of factoring. All right. So here we have a negative, and remember, in order to factor, it needs to be a positive. So we're going to factor out that negative. So we have a -1, and I showed you a shortcut, which is changing the signs of all of them. So if that's a negative, it's going to become a positive. If that's a negative, it becomes a positive. That's a positive, so it's going to become a negative 15. Because we're changing the sign because we're kind of dividing by a -1, so we're changing the signs. Okay, so then now I have to factor out the inside. So I have this x squared plus 2x minus 15. And we have to get the factors of 15. So let's go ahead and, there's a 1 here, so you can multiply 1 times 15, but it's just 15. So we're going to get the factors of 15. 1 times 15, 3 times 5, and that's it. And this one tells you to subtract, and it also tells you that the signs are going to be different, because that's when you subtract numbers, is when the signs are different. So we're going to subtract the numbers. 15 and 1 is 14. 3 and 5 is 2. There we go. We're trying to get that number in the middle, so it's going to be the 3 and the 5. Sorry if the camera's moving a lot. I couldn't find a stand, so I have to hold it with my other hand. Okay, so then now I have x and x. We're using 3 and 5. Now the signs are different because they're subtracting. The bigger sign gets that one, so it's going to be positive 5 because the 5 is bigger than the 3, and negative 3, and that's it. Oh wait, I forgot something. We forgot the -1 from the very beginning, because if I do FOIL here, x times x is positive x squared, and our answer has a negative, so we need to make sure we have that negative in the front. And there's your answer for factoring. Pretty simple.